elitist propaganda about the climate change is a classic example of the success of psychops. It's a psychological warfare that the global elite, with the help of the global corporates of select industries, which promise to successfully somehow control the climate or reverse the change that they claim is happening for the world, from the worst to the better, or the better or the best, in a tone of urgency. So what they're basically doing is very simple. What they do is these technologically well developed and relatively very affluent countries, rich countries like say Germany, which is a technological leader, they have this technology, and the tech companies of the West taking their alternate energy technology and thrusting it down the throat of developing countries like India and other countries like Brazil and other countries like the South Asian countries. So where they have been very successful in making a lot of countries to sign into this mainly European, Eurocentric, the European socialists are leading this movement, and they are taking help from the world media, and together they are not presenting scientific facts but emotional manipulation using children, bringing the children to the street, sending children to demanding that you buy from them this climate snake oil technology, control technology, which actually means, you're going to shell out a lot of money into unproven technologies that will be actually doing some good to the climate. It's just a claim, and it is not at all a proven fact. And making use of arguments that are bogus, because carbon dioxide emission is what they first began starting this propaganda of alarmist propaganda using carbon emissions, that is carbon dioxide, and blaming fossil fuels. So it is aimed at those countries which are developing and poor, who are heavily dependent on cheaper fuels like fossil fuels like coal, and it is aimed at forcing them to put curbs on that. These industries, mining activities takes a big hit, and oil and exploration and gas industry, natural gas industry, all the refineries and other things, and then asking you to misfocus on very silly, very expensive, very extravagant, questionable utopian switch at a pace with which is neither practical to do or to is it economically, it comes at an enormous cost to the developing countries, especially India. And the main beneficiary will be China, because China has cleverly bought all these alternate energy technologies 10 or 20 years ahead of others, anticipating that this is where the West will be moving to, and this is what they should mass produce. They have been very clever. While they have been actually, one of the worst carbon emission countries, only next to, they are one of the top carbon emitters. They have also sunk in $260 billion worth of research and development over the years of solar panels, electric vehicles and such, buying those technologies under license and then reverse engineering it and developing them on such a mass scale that China specializes on. So basically it is an export-oriented project. It is not, China is very clever. China was not targeting its own electrification. It is not pushing its own citizens to move from cheaper gasoline cars or diesel vehicles to electric cars. Its thrust is on making solar panels and electric vehicles for the consumption of the Western countries, other world market, which the climate lobby will open it for them. So these two are together. That is the highly, what I would call as the renewable energy lobby, or the elitist socialist governments from whom you have to buy these technologies and industries, capital goods from them, from Germany. And these two together, along with China, which will be the mass producer of this and export it back to the world, dump it on the world. These three together have been profiting at the expense of the Indian workers, the Indian mining sector, and the Indian, mining sector, the traditional, conventional, fossil fuel-based car manufacturing, vehicle manufacturing. You see, all those are affected now, and so the mining and all the jobs. So what has done is about 98% of all the solar panels India on one side has bought into this propaganda and signed into the climate control regime very early on, which means that you're going to use a lot of solar panels, you're going to bring that into the country. And where do you go for that is from China. So this is one of the reasons why the trade deficit is huge now with China. China, we are importing more goods than we are selling in China. And China is very clever, it does not give market access to your goods. And so it is a double whammy for us. And what happened is, as a result of which, we are making the cheapest solar panels, true, but for the domestic consumption, while China is making it to dump it on the world. We should have been doing what China is doing. Right now, this is one of the refocuses that Modi must make, that the solar panels don't push it down your domestic market, because it is highly questionable, because in order for the solar electrification to replace the traditional conventional electrification, you need lithium ions, and these lithium ions are very expensive. So you just start spending more and more and more, billions and billions of money into an objective and a goal that is not scientifically proven. All these savings will not lead to any better. You're confusing. Just here, stop for a minute. The climate lobby has successfully used the ignorance of people, scientific ignorance of the masses, by confusing them between clean, pollution-free air and the need for that, which nobody can disagree with climate control, which is a different topic altogether. The climate control is not about pollutants. It is not about particulate matter emitted by the exhaust of automobiles. It is about carbon. So these two things are different. Carbon is good for the environment because plants breathe carbon dioxide. So more carbon dioxide is released, more plants, food protection, agriculture benefits. So that is why you see that you take the map of India and China and see a satellite picture of it and compare it to the 20th century. In 21st century, in 20 years, as the carbon emission increases, the two countries are together with Africa. Sahara is becoming green. So India and China is becoming very green. It's full of forests, lush with greenery. So it is a very bad idea that carbon dioxide is bad for the climate, or for the food production, or for the forests and things like that, because we confuse it with air pollution. Second thing is that this carbon emission is only a part of the reason why the global is warming. We are in a graph. You have to look at the long-term graph. And if you look at the long-term graph, there have been periods earlier in history when you see that the globe has been much warmer. And people say that humanity was not there when that happened. True, but humanity would have been impossible without that warming. In other words, global warming actually resulted in the possibility of humans to come about, civilization to come about. And each time it warmed, civilization bloomed. So the last time when it warmed was when you see all these Nile Valley civilization, Indus Valley civilization, Egyptian civilization appear around, say, 7,000 to 8,000 years ago, just when that period. So warm periods actually lead to ice melting, the Europe gets populated and all. And again, when it went for the ice age, a mini ice age, you find all the plague, medieval plague, and the population dwindles. So you see, if we are in during one such warming period, that is where the population has boomed throughout the world. And another thing is, other than this food production, rise of availability of food, cheaper food, food will become more and more available as it gets warmer. This is the ice melting. Actually, ice fall in both the poles is increased. So this is actually another proven fact. So ice melting and islands and all the countries getting flooded is also total bullshit. And so another reason you can think of why global warming is bad for the world is the ice melting, the carbon emissions increasing and causing the sea levels to rise is total bullshit. And then the cyclones and storms and extreme weather increasing is also false, because the extreme weathers like hurricanes and drought, dry periods, famine are been coming down drastically in this past 20 years, especially when the carbon emissions have been increasing. So in whichever way you think this climate control was nothing but propaganda to create an alarm and panic and a sense of urgency, to abandon your reason and without checking into science, asking scientists, your own scientists, instead of the lobby scientists. They hire the lobby, they have their own scientists who present only one side of these facts. They are not able to explain why the globe is actually becoming more green, which is more forests, more food production, good carbon emissions. Then about the ice, snow is actually increasing at the pole, and the sea level rising, Maldives is still flourishing. Actually new islands are coming up, artificial islands are being built, like in Dubai and by China in the South China Sea. So you see, in whichever way you think about this, the cost-benefit ratio is clearly, it's an outlandish, extravagant, populist myth of climate change and self-regulation and all kinds of curbing of your national industries. So it is a complete waste of time. You are wasting your time and all the jobs lost. So you have only limited time. So if this government will be for 4 years, and you have to give jobs in these 4 years and not work towards distant goals when the carbon dioxide will come, because only 1% of the carbon dioxide, 1% of the global warming is happening due to all the total carbon dioxide emission. A majority of it is happening because of methane, of which the principal contributor is the cattle. So, and agriculture, farming. So if you are going to, without question, agree to sign to all these things, they are next going to put curbs on your agriculture. So first they create industrial joblessness in India. Next they are proceeding to hurt your agriculture, which is already finished. They will kill it and create artificial famines by putting all kinds of direct curbs which you won't be even aware. It's actually affecting the agriculture. So they are going after methane next, which is 20 times more carbon, greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide. And then what they will do about the 80% of the greenhouse gas that is a contributor of this warming, which is water vapor. You cannot control ocean's water vapor. So the whole premise of climate control is on that 1% to 2% of the carbon dioxide. And how much of it is actually reflected in the warming? They say that 1 in 7,000 part, thousandth of a fraction, which is horrifically bad, very bad, that India should sacrifice its mining activity, cheaper coal and gas thermal power stations, and more practical, cheaper cars, conventional cars that run on fossil fuels. It has to put all kinds of curbs on that at the expense of some companies that make electric cars like Hyundai and Giants, which are collaborating, and then the solar panels, which 98% of our solar panels come from China. So you are destroying your traditional electric generations, and by this misfocus you are providing jobs for China. And at the same time it will make at least sense if you mass produce it and export it to other countries. You'll be creating jobs, but that is not what you're doing. What you're doing right now is pushing it in your own domestic market, giving concessions and pushing it aggressively. So that comes at a cost. So lost opportunity. So in these 4 years, for heaven's sake, Modi must either switch this solar obsession of coal, climate change and solar stuff and all that, solar panels, into export-oriented manufacturing activity. In that grounds, it's creating jobs. It's okay. You're not doing a great thing for the climate and all. It's complete bullshit, because the lithium is a pollutant actually. So the lithium is a poison, and you're going to make lithium-ion batteries. It will be a huge problem, like nuclear waste disposal. And apart from that, it's expensive, terrifically expensive, and you're buying this lithium-ion batteries because solar power, sun is not always on the sky. It gets clouded, and you have monsoon in India. So it's impractical, because in order to create this solar panel, then you need lithium batteries as a backup, and a secondary backup, gas generation plants to provide that gas. It makes no sense. It's better that you use that for creating 10 or 20 gas-based, coal-based thermal stations, and what will happen? Nothing. Is that you will be making cheaper energy, generating cheaper power. The